If you're watching this, there's a good chance you've asked yourself a terrifying question. Do I actually have two problems? You already know that your relationship with alcohol is an issue, but can it explain how badly you feel? You feel awful. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's boredom. But for so many of us, it's a crushing weight of depression. And here's the trap. You drink to manage the depression, but the drinking seems to lock you inside it. It feels like a barrier that you cannot cross. You try to quit, but the sadness or anxiety screams so loud that you reach for the only medicine that you know works, the bottle. If that sounds like you, stay with me for this entire video, because today I'm going to talk about why your two problems might actually be only one problem in disguise. And I'm going to give you a specific timeline, a milestone you need to reach to find out the truth. Hi, I'm Dr. Donald Crowe, and I practiced emergency medicine for 40 years. But perhaps more importantly for this conversation, I've spent well over half that career in recovery myself. And during that time, among the most common questions I heard from patients were about numbers. How much drinking is too much? How much alcohol counts as heavy drinking? How do I know when I've crossed the line? When people asked me those questions, I had two reactions. First, hope, because it takes insight and courage to even ask. It means you're willing to consider that alcohol might be playing a role in whatever's going wrong. But I also felt frustration because I knew what they expected from me. They wanted a clean formula. They wanted me to say, here's the number, stay under it, and you're safe. And I also knew how unsatisfying it would be when I gave them the only honest medical answer. It depends. Because simply counting drinks isn't enough. We have to look at your overall relationship with alcohol. In the emergency department, I tried to help patients look outward first, at consequences. And let me tell you, the human brain has highly tuned defense mechanisms designed to blind us to the link between drinking and damage. Sometimes this was so extreme, it would be laughable if it weren't tragic. I've had patients with end-stage liver failure come in asking me to fix their bright yellow skin color that appeared a week prior. Even though their own doctors warned them alcohol was taking a toll, they ignored it or minimized it. And when I pointed out alcohol could be the cause, many insisted that I first look elsewhere, because to them, alcohol being the culprit felt impossible. I remember an elderly woman who came in with a scalp laceration after a fall. I asked her if she'd been drinking. She looked me square in the eye and said, "Not a drop." Her blood alcohol came back at roughly 3 times the legal driving limit. And here's the point. If you can't make the link between the drink and the fall, or the drink and the liver failure, then the number of drinks doesn't matter. You can do the math all day long and still miss the truth. But here's the part that matters for most of you watching. You might not be yellow. You might not be falling downstairs. You might be holding down a job, paying the mortgage, showing up for your kids, and still be quietly falling apart inside. So I also ask my patients about the internal consequences. Have you tried to control your drinking? How did you do it? And what did it cost you? Because people who don't have a problem with alcohol usually don't spend much energy managing it. They can stop and they don't think about it. But the people I worried about described something different. They were like me. They described effort. They described white knuckling. They described irritability when they succeeded and shame when they failed. And when the act of controlling your drinking drains your emotional battery, that tells me something important. Then I would ask one final question because the ER didn't give me nearly enough time to have the conversations I wanted to have. I'd ask, why do you drink? The answers fell into 2 groups. The first group drank to add positives, fun, joy, reward, celebration, social ease. And the second group drank to manage the negatives, to quiet anxiety, fill boredom, soothe loneliness, and treat depression. And today I want to focus on that last one, treating depression with alcohol. Because in my experience, alcohol use and depression frequently walk hand in hand. Now, here's where it gets complicated. When someone is dependent on alcohol and uses it systematically, their body and brain change. Mood flattens, sleep cycles disintegrate, motivation drops, energy and stamina disappear, pleasure fades. You lose interest in things you used to love. You don't have to be a doctor to recognize something. Those are the same exact symptoms that characterize depression. So what happens? A person looks at their life and says, I drink too much and I'm depressed. And they might be right, but the real problem is this. While you're still drinking, it can be almost impossible to tell which is which. Alcohol is a great mimic. It creates a state that looks, feels, and acts like depression. So you're trying to treat depression with the very substance that can generate depression-like symptoms. And that's the trap. It creates a diagnostic fog that you cannot clear with wishful thinking. You have to remove the alcohol. Not for a day, not for a week, not even for a month. You have to remove it for an adequate period of time. And that brings us to the core idea of this video, the 12-week milestone. There is some debate, and everyone's biology is admittedly different. But the science out there suggests that the most common time frame needed to begin seeing what's really going on underneath is about 12 weeks without a drink or intoxicating drug. Now, for a select few, especially those with long-term and heavy use, it can take longer, 6 months to a year, for the effects to dissipate enough to see the baseline clearly. But for the vast majority, 12 weeks is the target to aim for, because that's when the fog often starts to lift. Here's the tragedy I see all the time. People who most need this milestone are the people least likely to reach it. Because if you've been using alcohol as your treatment for depression, the moment you remove it, you feel worse before you feel better. And your brain uses that to sell you a lie. See, this is just who you are. You're depressed. You need a drink. If you've tried to quit and failed because the darkness felt too overwhelming, I need you to hear something, and I'm going to say it carefully. It is possible that your primary problem has more to do with alcohol than with an underlying depressive disorder. That may not be true for you, but if you refuse to even consider the possibility, you rob yourself of the chance to find out. Now, let me add a crucial safety warning. If you stop drinking and become suicidal, homicidal, psychotic, or you simply lose touch with reality, you are in a different category. Let me emphasize, nothing I'm saying here applies to you. That circumstance is a medical emergency. Get professional help and do so immediately. But for the large group of people dealing with what I'll call garden variety depression, low mood, low energy, poor sleep, lack of motivation, the 12-week milestone is incredibly important. If you're already on medication for depression, do not stop it because of this video. Keep taking what you're prescribed and talk to your clinician. But I will tell you what I've seen over nearly 3 decades sober. Countless individuals discover that after a couple of months without alcohol, the symptoms that they were convinced were their depression decreased enough to make them question whether depression was really in the mix at all. And as these individuals built the skills of sober living, structure, connection, sleep, exercise, better nutrition, purpose, Many find that they need less medication over time, and some taper off completely under supervision. So, you might be asking, okay, Dr. Crowe, how do I cross that desert? How do I get to that 12 weeks when I feel so miserable? Here's the good news. The same interventions that help you stay sober for 3 months are many of the same interventions that help depression. You're not just waiting, you're rebuilding. You're restoring sleep. You're moving your body. You're getting sunlight. You're eating protein. You're building routine. You're getting honest, hopefully with yourself and at least one other human being. In a best-case situation, you're treating the symptoms while removing the cause, or while you discover what the cause actually is. And then you have a choice in how you frame what you're doing. Frame number 1 is the default frame. I'm really screwed. I have not one but 2 terrible problems. Frame number 2 is the second act frame. If I remove alcohol, I may discover that I have no obstructions standing between me and a satisfying life. I'm urging you to try on frame number 2, not as motivational fluff, as a practical experiment. Because what have you got to lose by running an honest test? Getting to that 12-week mark is hard. I know that. To help people who are committed in transitioning from wanting to get sober to actually doing so, I created a 90-day sobriety survival kit. It gives you a structured way to approach those weeks when your brain is noisy and your emotions are raw. I've put a link in the description below. And for those of you who are still unsure about your relationship with alcohol, ask yourself one important question. Has my drinking become irrational? If you want help answering that question with evidence, I also have a free downloadable checklist that helps you put the data in front of you, the same way you'd approach any other important decision in your life. There is a path through the depression and confusion, but you have to clear the alcohol away first to see what actually is there. I'm Dr. Donald Crowe, and thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, please subscribe, like, and most importantly, comment below. Also, why not check out this video about how anxiety and alcohol are related? And remember, giving up drinking does not mean giving up anything real. It means opening the door to the life you deserve. I'll see you in the next one.